Donald Trump is suffering from more and more mental lapses as he campaigns, and the mainstream media is finally being forced to cover it. NBC writes, Trump confuses the name of his doctor when bragging about taking a cognitive test. Representative Ronnie Jackson was the White House physician in both the Obama and Trump administrations, but I have a clip for you guys of Donald Trump calling Ronnie Jackson Ronnie Johnson multiple times on stage while bragging about acing a cognitive test. And this is a repeated pattern of behavior from Donald Trump. He has consistently, repeatedly mixed up the names of Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi, or Obama and Biden. He consistently, repeatedly goes on these long-winded rants about MIT or sharks, leaving his audience confused. And I think the most frustrating part about all of this is that people take these 5 to 10 second clips of President Biden and act like that is evidence. That is the silver bullet proof that President Biden has dementia or is senile. But if you zoom out from these 5-second clips, you see that he is completely fine. Whereas with Donald Trump, you can take entire 2-minute clips of him speaking. You can take 4 5-minute clips of him speaking and see clearly that he is losing his mind and he is rambling about stuff that has nothing to do with reality. But watch this clip of Donald Trump bragging about acing a cognitive test, then getting the name of his doctor wrong.
He doesn't even know what the word inflation means. I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Doc Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson, Congress?
Donald Trump is all talk here. Even if we grant the premise that President Biden is slowing down a little bit, he is still infinitely smarter in his old age than Donald Trump has been throughout his entire life. I make this point all the time, but if you sat those two down, President Biden and Donald Trump, and you quizzed them about any issue, President Biden would be much, much more knowledgeable. If you ask them about the history of Israel and Palestine going back to 1948, President Biden would have a much deeper understanding, whereas Donald Trump wouldn't even know that the year 1948 was important. When it comes to Ukraine, when it comes to American domestic history, Joe Biden knows way more. I mean, maybe Donald Trump knows more about New York real estate or some niche topic relating to real estate because that was his specialty, but when it comes to anything related to politics, Joe Biden is way smarter, and I hate this talking point. I hate that Donald Trump has gaslit the public into believing that he is some policy genius, that he knows what he's talking about. The fact that his opinion and President Biden's opinions are even held on the same page, held on the same level, to me is a massive mistake. President Biden is a great man who's been working in politics for decades. He has a very deep and thorough understanding of how these things work, and because of that, he's actually been able to come into the White House and pass massive legislation that Donald Trump would have only dreamed of being able to pass. Because of Joe Biden's experience in Washington, because as a function of that, he was able to pass this bipartisan infrastructure bill, and Donald Trump wasn't able to get that same bill passed because he doesn't understand how the game of politics is played. He doesn't understand compromise. He doesn't understand any of this, and to President Biden, it is second nature. I highly recommend you guys watch President Biden's interview with Howard Stern. If you haven't seen it, it is an amazing interview. It gets incredibly emotional, and you really begin to understand why President Biden deserves to be in the position he is in today. The interview is great. He's a great man. I highly recommend the interview. Look up Howard Stern, President Biden on YouTube. But before you do that, watch this clip of Jack Black campaigning for President Biden at his most recent star-studded fundraiser. It is a hilarious clip. Watch.
A few days ago, my manager called me and said George Clooney and Julia Roberts wanted me to help out the president and speak here tonight, and I said, I am in. When and where? And thank you. And then they said, Jack, we know how busy you are. You don't have time. Look at all the other events that are happening tonight that you already turned down. MC at the Fliegelman Bat Mitzvah. The opening of the new Jack in the Box in Oxnard. Judge at the 2nd annual Imperial Valley Avocado Festival. You don't see that on Meryl Streep's resume. I said, I know I turned them down, but my president needs me. Thank you. And then they hit me with the big one. They said, Jack, you can't go. You have nothing to wear. Your good suit is in the cleaners. Well, were they wrong? Because I had this to wear. My kick-ass American flag overalls. Most patriotic outfit of all times. That shut him up. There wasn't much they could say after that. And when the president wins in November, yeah! I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a sweet shout out in his victory speech for what I gave up to be here. Because when democracy is at stake, Jack Black answers the call. Mr. President, you're welcome. That's not the president, that's not Judge, it's a random dude. But I thought it would look better if I talked right to a guy.
Jack Black is literally a ball of charisma. Leave a like on the video if you agree. But in this next clip, Donald Trump is very snarky and is very demeaning towards the president of France, Emmanuel Macron. He makes sly remarks about wine, about champagne, and says that he was going to put a 100% tariff on Emmanuel Macron. And I find it interesting the way that Donald Trump talks about our Western allies versus the way that he talks about strongmen, authoritarian leaders. He constantly praises people like Viktor Orban, who have stripped the liberal democracy away from their own country. He has nice things to say about Xi Jinping, calling him incredibly smart, but then when it comes to the president of France, one of our great allies, he starts being snarky and becomes incredibly demeaning. It makes you wonder where his loyalties truly lie, but watch this clip.
And I said to him, listen, Emmanuel, if you don't drop that tax immediately, no, I cannot do that. I said, yes, you can. If you don't tax it immediately, all wine, every bit of wine, every bottle of wine and champagne that you send into the United States, we're putting a 100% tariff on that wine or champagne. We don't want your wine and champagne. We make great stuff over here. And he said, Donald, that is not fair. I said, yeah, it's not fair to charge American companies 25%. I got to stick up for the companies. They're our job producers. He said, that is not fair. I said, Emmanuel, you have 24 hours to tell me. 10 minutes would be better. He calls me up 5 minutes later. Donald, we have agreed to terminate the 25% tax on America. I do things like this. You have no idea how many deals you could make on a phone.
Trump is constantly picking fights with people, calling them nicknames and demeaning them, then whining and playing victim when they respond with anything. This happens all the time. Donald Trump is the biggest victim in the world. He'll commit a crime spree, then cry when he's caught. He'll run through porn stars and say he was the victim when his wife finds out. I can go down the list, but I'll spare you guys. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment a blue heart, hit the subscribe button, and have a great day.